To the cloud. Hello, this is Deborah Chelette-Wilson and Boundless Freedom Show. I am so happy to introduce a lady that I met at the Public Speakers Association conference this July in Las Vegas. And her name is Marilyn Pride. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi. How are you?
I'm so glad to have you. Great. I'm so glad to have you here today and to share with my audience the new little direction that you took in your life. So let's just get started and just kind of tell us a little about where your name and where you're from, what you've been up to, you know, what your job is, and what your new love project is.
Thank you, Deborah.
Take it away.
Thank you. My name's Marilyn Pride, and I live in the Chicagoland area. And my real job, or my day-to-day job, is I'm a business analyst with a software development team. And I've been in IT my whole life, but my degree in college was social work. And I graduated and found the reality of finding a job in social work at that particular economy, and I went into information technology. Now I'm looking to find something, to work on something. I found it. Now I'm looking to develop my true interest and something that I can feel is beneficial. And that is my new company, Pen and Paper Legacies. Pen and Paper Legacies is my project to help older adults tell their life story. And I do that for a number of reasons. And I can go into those. One of them is that as people age and we're living longer and longer, there's the risk of isolation, and there's a risk of kind of detachment from family. Oftentimes our children are moving to different cities and so forth. Life story is a way of connecting with our families. It's a way of connecting ourselves to our lives. There's no greater joy to me than to finish working with someone and hear them say, boy, I did pretty good. I'm kind of proud of that. And that is, to me, one of the best parts of legacy stories is re-examining one's life, seeing and feeling grateful about what life's given us, and realizing our accomplishments.
Now, how did you get started in doing these stories? What kind of prompted you to think this was kind of something your heart was telling you to do?
I joined an entrepreneurship group looking for something to do that would be meaningful to me. And in doing that, I just kind of re-examined the things that had interested me and laid dormant for a long time. In college, my senior project was to build a program that helped reach out to older adults who were isolated. It was in a semi-rural area. There were lots of people who were still living on the farm and were becoming very isolated and at risk. So that was something that I went to, also because I just love hearing people's stories. So that's an interest that I've always had. But I saw it as a way of re-engaging people who are maybe withdrawing a little bit from life because of physical ailments, age, isolation, and a way of helping people feel less isolated, feel more proud of their life.
Yeah, do you find that today with our technology that it is disconnecting us in our relationships more and more? And that something like this would be a beneficial way for people to reconnect, especially with the elderly generations that have lived. Just think about what they have lived through, all the changes that we've taken, some of the younger generations take for granted because they just grew up with everything. But they have grandparents and maybe great grandparents, maybe even parents who've seen a lot of things change in the last 30 to 50 years that they might have some wisdom to share with the newer generations that could be beneficial to them.
Exactly. And particularly with wisdom, when it comes out as advice, it's not always welcome. When it comes out in story, it is, and it's welcome. So I think you hit on something that I think is really valuable in terms of intergenerations. A number of people that I've interviewed have lived through World War II. They were children, or they were just about at the age of being drafted, or in fact were drafted. And that's a period of life I did not live through, but it has certainly affected everyone of my generation. And so I've learned a lot of valuable information from people that I've interviewed who lived through that, and gotten a feel of it. And I think it's important for everyone. You mentioned disconnectedness. And one thing that comes to mind is that things like Ancestry.com have been so popular, and I think people are yearning for a connection to their history, to what influenced them, where their values came from. But very often it's a copy of a birth certificate, a copy of a death certificate, but not really the meaning of and the day-to-day experiences of the people that have been our ancestors. And part of Pen and Paper Legacies is to fill in that gap. So while our technology has given us things like Ancestry.com, and we can search all these things, we're losing a lot of the context, the meaning, the real relationship building that can come from spending the time to write a story, spending the time to read the story. And it's actually not a matter of spending the time. People are eager to do both and need both.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's really, really interesting. And, I think you also hit on something that we may not think about very often, but that what we're living now was created on the foundation of what came before us. Yes. And we lose that connection as well, that intergenerational beliefs and histories that are more part of us than I think we really realize.
Absolutely. You're so right, Deborah. That's very, very true. And yes, I do think that's lost.
So tell me, what kind of process do people go through in doing their legacies with you?
So one thing that struck me is that the goal of Pen and Paper Legacies is to, part of it is to alleviate some of the isolation that older adults can feel. But writing is a very lonely process. So what I found has worked very well is I will sit down and interview someone. And we may take an hour, 2 hours, or so forth, and I'll interview. And I think that's really, really helpful because we can structure the story together, and it's a more interactive. It's a far less isolated experience. Once the interview is done, I record it. The individual, the person that I'm working with, can write their own story. Or really everyone's asked me to do the writing. So I've written a story, and then we've sat down together and reworked it, corrected if I misunderstood something, restructured a little bit. So that's the process that I've gone through thus far. That's, I think, been very, very helpful and enlightening and rewarding for people.
Yes, I can see that would be, because just that process is you're connecting with them and you're connecting with their life and the value of their life, and they're being able to give it a narrative. And just in that kind of process, to me, that's a very connecting kind of experience that would, I think, maybe even help them see things in their life that maybe they hadn't noticed before.
Deborah, I totally agree with you. So many times someone will be telling me something in kind of a matter-of-fact tone, and to me, it's a huge accomplishment. It's something really to be celebrated, and I find people are surprised, and it helps look at it a little differently. Um, One really nice experience was somebody kind of sat back and said, "Oh, I think I did pretty good," and that was a wonderful thing because they did. So that's a joy of it.
Yeah, so I can see how that would give you joy and also be very, very helpful and supportive for the person,
Mhm.
let alone then they can give their stories to their family.
Right.
I know from my own experience, there's a lot of things that I didn't really understand about my family because we just didn't talk about a lot of things as a child growing up. As got facts in the papers and this, that, and the other thing, but it doesn't really capture the essence of the person, and what their life was like. Of course, I'm a history buff, and so putting things in a historical context of their lives gave me some additional things in relation to what they were doing and how that might have been, especially my grandmother. She was kind of living above and beyond what was possible supposedly back then for women. But so that was a cool thing to find out. But yeah, but putting things in historical context, I think, helps give us a deeper meaning. And if you've got that person's words and their experience, then you can kind of sit back and go, wow, because all of those people are what it took to get us here today. And I
Absolutely.
think we don't get that. And I think that is so enriching. I know it has been for me in, looking into my family history and getting that kind of foundation of where I've come from. And it's not always pretty, but it doesn't matter. It's because it's what's real. And I think that being real is really important. We've got so much stuff that's false that, I look at the good, bad, and ugly of the whole thing. And, and then I get to choose what I do with the legacies I've been given and create my own.
Right.
So I'm so excited to find out what you do and be able to share it with the people that watch my show.
Well, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoy talking about it. And I'm really hoping that legacy stories become more and more a part of family life and more something that people think to do.
I hope so too. So how can people get in touch with you? And is there anything you would like to offer the people that watch my show today?
Sure, sure. People can get in touch with me at https :/ this doesn't work very well verbally, but bear with me, thank you. So it's book me, all one word, .name / pen and paper legacies. And the and is spelled out, it's AND. And you can book a 15-minute conversation with me for us to talk about strategies for story writing. This could be if you are looking to write your own story, or you're interested in helping a family member or a friend to write their story. But a 15-minute discussion, you can book the time on my calendar, and you can also email me directly from the site, and I'll be glad to hear from you and respond. So that is what I'd like to offer today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Marilyn. And remember her uh, website, or well, you haven't got your website yet, but it's bookme.com, .name, I'll get it right here in a minute, /pen and paper legacies. Or just remember pen and paper legacies, and I bet they can find you that way too.
Thank you so much.
You know, when in doubt, just Google it. Or contact me, and I'll be glad to, yeah, and I'll be glad to connect you. So thank you so much, Marilyn. You have been delightful in learning more about what you do. I had no idea people were doing this, so I think it's really awesome. And thanks for sharing all this with me today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed meeting you at the conference, and I love this opportunity today, and it was nice to chat with you, Deborah.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. So talk to you all later.